I used to be great. Not totally.
Mine's in big print.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the perfect time to make sure all cell phones are turned off for the service. Folks, you can come much closer here. There are a couple of extra chairs. Family's been seated, so please don't be bashful.
We commence our memorial service as we often do in other life cycle events with words from the Psalms. I'm choosing to share from Psalm 121, which I always find to be very in context when we're so close to the mountains. Shir ma'ala tesa'enai el heharim me'ayin yavo esri. Esri mehim Adonai osei shamayim ba'aretz. Al yiten lamot raglecha ayanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum belo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakecha, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha me mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzecha uvoecha, me'ata v'at olam. I will lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? The source of my help is the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. God will not let you falter. Your guardian does not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. He is at your right hand to protect you. The Lord, your keeper, gives shelter. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. The Lord will preserve your soul. He will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forever. As we gather this sacred community to remember and pay our final tribute and to lay to rest our beloved Mark, we begin by extending our condolences to his beloved Susan, to his son Jason, and to Jason's fiance Ariel, to Mark's brother Barry and sister-in-law Cindy. We also want, in addition to acknowledging all of the friends and colleagues of Mark, we also want to thank those who had their share of caregiving, which was so important and so comforting to the family during these last weeks. The anonymous poet writes, "Not what I get, but what I give. This be the gauge by which I live. Not merely joys that come my way, but the help I give to those astray. Not the rewards of money and fame, but the loads I lift in mankind's name. This be the pay at the end of the day, not what I keep, but what I give away. Count your garden by the flowers, never by the leaves that fall. Count your days by golden hours. Don't remember clouds at all. Count your nights by stars, not shadows. Count your life with smiles, not tears, and with joy on every birthday. Count your age by friends and not by years." Our rabbis made a fascinating comment about how we create a feeling of godliness in our lives. They said, the divine presence does not rest where there is idleness or sadness or levity or frivolity or empty speech, but only where there is happiness. Why is it that happiness is what attracts the divine presence? Because there are moments in all of our lives when it is difficult to maintain an outlook of joy. Life is filled with moments of celebration, but life is also filled with hurt and pain. Therefore, to live life with constant joy is to affirm faith in goodness and meaning of life. The person who lives life joyfully, despite the difficulties that life may bring, therefore, is a witness to God's existence. All who were close to Mark appreciate how his last few years were indeed very rough, and marveled at how he pulled through over and over again because he wanted to live. He wanted to be together with us, only letting go once he knew that his loved ones would be okay. Above all, Mark lived life joyfully with great happiness. And whether or not he knew it, he did God's work by bringing joy to all who knew him. For so many of us, that joy was accomplished by the provision of food. And in a few minutes, I'll ask you just to call out your favorite Millenson dishes, because I'm sure we could all come up with a beautiful buffet. But as we shall hear this afternoon, Mark served up happiness in many different ways. We recall his life now, born in this city of Denver, Colorado, on November 14th, 1954. Mark Lewis Millenson was the third of 4 children born to Hank and Phyllis of blessed memory. He attended Denver schools and graduated from Thomas Jefferson High School, almost immediately after which he worked in restaurants and started a catering business with a friend of his. He married Susan on November 21st, 1981, while Susan was a grad student. They met at a party, as it was explained to me. And Susan eventually joined the catering party as well, after many stints doing other things. We were so lucky to have Millenson Catering at Rodef Shalom for 23 years. And we acknowledge so many of the staff and the clients who were a part of that great story. But of course, another very important achievement of Mark's that filled him with so much pride was being father to Jason. It was a very special time for him when Jason was welcomed into the world in late 1985. And even unto the final weeks that Mark spent at home, just talking about Jason brought a smile to his face. And so with that, we'd like to invite Jason Millenson forward to share some words with us. We should have said that after.
Yeah.
My dad was a driving force bringing people together. It was no wonder that he ventured into kosher catering. He likely aided many of you in coming together, whether he catered your wedding, your son or daughter's bar mitzvah, or a Shabbat meal. My dad provided that crucial element for all of you to gather, food. Because what better way to congregate than to share a meal with strangers and friends alike? He also loved bringing people together in his home life. Ever the entertainer and host, I have fond memories of sitting at our dining room table, spanning 2 rooms, filled with people who flew in from multiple states, all for Rosh Hashanah dinner. I have many happy memories of the extravagant parties he would throw for my mom's milestone birthdays, complete with live music, dancing, and of course, food. The catering staff parties were always so much fun, with the vodka cranberries flowing freely. At one of these parties, he enlisted a friend of myself to be bartenders for the evening. We were 11 years old. Needless to say, we made a lot of tips that night. Wherever he went, my dad was always the life of the party. At any event he attended, you would find people crowded around with tears streaming down their faces from laughter. There he was at the center of it, both creating that laughter and laughing right along with everyone. That was Mark in his element. He loved making all around him, He loved making all around him laugh with his quick wit. His sense of humor was infectious for all, or almost all. On occasion, when people first met him, they would sometimes not know what to do with him. This larger-than-life personality, where you sometimes could not tell if he was joking or being serious. On those occasions, he made it his personal goal to win them over. Whether it took all night or not, he usually did. Once again, my dad brought people together through his humor. I had the pleasure of working with him in his catering business off and on for many years. Behind the scenes, you saw a different side of my dad. While there were countless times joking was present, there was also a serious side to him. He was someone who had very high standards and strived to give the best product he could provide. If any of you have worked in the food industry, you understand how high stress the job can be. My dad was certainly not impervious to that stress. At times, I think that he had a love-hate relationship with the catering business. However, he had a lot of pride in what he brought to those events. A lot of those people my dad employed became his closest friends. Many transformed from being an employee to an extended family member. He brought this mismatched group of people together. My dad was nothing but dedicated to his family. He grew up in a very loving and tight-knit home with his 3 siblings and his parents. They were very involved in the Denver Jewish community. Food was an integral part of the family. His father became the primary cook in the household, and the children all followed suit and became cooks themselves, with my dad starting his first catering company directly after high school. My dad inherited his grandmother, Rose, at age 18 after his father died. I remember often accompanying him to see Rose. We would visit and spend hours with her, week in and week out, bringing whatever item she may request of him. Once his sister Flori and brother Stephen passed, my dad took it upon himself to keep the family together, often hosting backyard barbecues or vacations to Las Vegas with my cousins and myself. He truly became the patriarch of the family. Last but not least, he loved my mother dearly, and for 40 years they would go on many adventures, traveling the world, having fun wherever they would go, and spending time with those they loved. My dad was one of my closest confidants. He made me laugh more than anyone else and was always there for me whenever I needed advice. I remember many late nights sitting on the porch with him near his spectacular garden, a drink in one hand, a cigarette in the other, and the dogs at our feet. Having conversation after conversation, but anything and everything. I will always cherish those times. Here he is again, right now, bringing everyone together. My dad told me many times that he had lived the life the way he wanted to, and he had absolutely no regrets. I know this much to be true. In one of my last conversations with him, he told me that he hoped that I had enjoyed his humor over the years. Without hesitation, I told him I had. I hope you all have too.
Thank you so much for sharing. And next, to round out the family tributes and eulogies, I'd like to invite forward Barry, Mark's brother, and then following Barry's comments, David Adelstein, Mark's cousin.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. At my mom's funeral, Mark spoke very elegantly. At my brother Stephen's funeral, Mark spoke very elegantly. And at my sister's funeral, Mark spoke very elegantly. Well, elegant public speaking didn't go to the baby of the family. Just like being the baby of the family of 4 siblings, there are tons of pictures of the first 2. There's hundreds of pictures of the third one, and there's about 10 pictures of me. But being the baby did mean that I would be the one that would take the brunt of the jokes and the pranks. And believe me, Mark could orchestrate pranks better than anyone. For example, when I was 4 or 5 years old, we had a dog named Noodles. Every night I would get on the floor and I would kiss Noodles goodnight. And I would tell Noodles, "Good night, Noodles." One night, Noodles said, "Good night, Barry." Mark had hid in the closet. I couldn't believe it happened. I ran upstairs and I told my parents, "Noodles can talk. You won't believe Noodles can talk." I remember I often played fort in a cabinet under our kitchen sink. Well, Mark thought it would be really cute to turn on the garbage disposal one night when I was under there. It scared me so bad I kicked the door open and broke it. I was in trouble for that. But I think the ultimate prank that Mark played on me was when he convinced me that I had an older brother named Harold that was killed in the war. I was too young to know him. I was so upset with my parents because they never told me about Harold. But the thing was, they went on with it for a couple weeks before they eventually told me that that was not true. Mark was also the one that taught me to smoke cigarettes. I think I was 12 or 14 years old. He told me that if I smoked in the basement, I wouldn't get caught. I was probably too dumb to realize that smoke rises as well. Because a few days later, I went out in the basement and I lit one up. It was probably about 15 minutes later, my father comes running down the stairs with a fire extinguisher. I got busted well, and it was Mark's fault, but that's okay. There are many, many more stories I could go on, but we would be here way too long. But Mark loved to throw a party, whether it was a small dinner party or a party for several hundred. I remember many years ago, Mark helped organize a 100-year birthday party for Grandma Rose. Some of you were probably there. It was a great party and she had a wonderful time. My other grandmother passed away in her 90s. But when it came to be her 100th birthday, Mark threw a party for her. He always loved throwing parties. Mark enjoyed serving others. He was a perfectionist in many areas. He always wanted everything to be perfect for others. And it showed over and over in his professional life as a caterer and in his home life as a husband, father, and brother. Rest in peace, my dear brother.
Whenever I'm at a funeral and it's warm outside, and I think about the person that I'm here to memorialize, remember, I think about the number of years that they gave to the world and standing out here in the sun and in the heat. What's a few minutes, right? What's a few minutes? So I'll only be up here for about 67 minutes, and I hope you can bear with me. No, I'm kidding. It was wonderful to hear what Jason, what you had to say, and as well as you, Barry, because what I realized is that I was just a small spoke in Mark's world. And it's an honor to be up here. Mark and I are second cousins. Our grandparents were siblings. Mine, Harry, and his Rose, which Barry spoke about. And Rose impacted everyone in our family. She lived a long time, longer than my grandfather. And in some ways, she was a connector between me and Mark. But in other ways, Mark and I have a 10-year difference in our ages. I don't know, how do two cousins for our 6, 7 siblings, I can remember 6 or 7, find a way to each other? I don't know. I don't know how that was. It always kind of amazed me, but also kind of made me feel pretty special and unique about our relationship. Maybe because we were both the youngest or close to the youngest in our generations, we found a connection. I don't know. But that connection was pretty deep. He made his own path and created his own journey. And he didn't really seem to me as a younger person to really care what other people thought. He was going to do what he was going to do. When I was in high school, I would run into Mark a lot because I used to cater in high school. And I would see him at events, and I would want his attention so that I could, I was proud. He was catering. That's my cousin over there. He's the caterer. And I was really proud of that. Mark also had a very loving relationship with my mother. And it was the sort of thing that was conveyed, hey, we know Mark, and he will help us with the catering. We are special to him. He helps just us, which wasn't the case. As years went by, Mark and I would find some time and talk and connect, usually kind of around the food business. And of course, I had this crazy situation where on really a weekly basis, Susan and I would run into each other at King Soopers. It was kind of a timed thing. And that always kind of filled me every time. And I think it would be strange to go to King Soopers and look around and not see her there. When Mark came to me to ask me for help on a few things, I never felt really burdened by that. I felt really special. I felt honored and proud that Mark trusted me enough to come to me out of many other choices. I mean, just listening to the two of you, it's very evident how many people Mark impacted in his life. So if Mark came to me, it must be special. I must be special to him. And I felt that way. And so I helped him. And when he asked me to help him with a Jewish burial so that he could have a Jewish burial, I didn't hesitate, nor did many of you. With the help of really a lot of people, we're here today giving Mark a send-off, the Jewish burial that he wanted, a spot to mark his place in our Jewish world and in our lives. I want to thank those who helped make this happen, Rabbi Gerson, Connie Susan, Neil Price, Jamie Sarche, and many others that worked with me to see this happen. This was a mitzvah, and one we should not look to or look at lightly, and instead be lifted and proud that we helped bring a sense of peace and comfort to Mark and his family. As we all know, Mark contributed to our Jewish world. He became a star at his Word of Shalom community. He was sought after and he loved it. He loved engaging with others. He loved providing service and good food. Interestingly enough, when I saw him a couple weeks ago, he told me that he didn't really like to cook or bake at all. I was surprised. He liked the service part, the directing part, the community part. While his food was creative and tasty, one would never know he didn't like making it. I don't think we'll ever have a bunk cake like Mark's again. The secret ingredient, folks, mayonnaise. I will miss Mark in my life. I don't have an older brother. And Mark really was like an older brother to me over all these years. He was a person I was happy to help take care of. Happy to say, yeah, I know Mark. I know Mark. I knew him. Someone who loved conspiring, who I loved conspiring with and gossiping with about others and laughing. I will miss you.
Thank you, Mary. Before we invite Nate to share with us, I'd like to indulge everybody, if you would, kind of picking up on what David just closed with. Just call out your favorite Millenson Catering product.
Font cake.
Hungarian goulash soup.
Google.
Google.
Salmon wrapped in peanut asparagus.
My wife, Sue, who apologizes she's not feeling well today, she once said to Mark, for my last meal, I want to start with key lime pie, not only because you want to start with dessert, because life is short, but then she would move in succession to lemon chicken. The key lime pie is first because it's dairy. Dairy comes before meat. So then lemon chicken, and then closing out with beef burgundy. I will add the oven fried chicken that I asked for time and time again and was often gratified with.
In the backyard. And I had a friend down the street. It was under the amount of stuff he was trying to get done. So, I worked for a while as a temp. He hired me on full time, and then eventually I became his manager, like doing front of the house, back of the house, and I moved into his condo. Him and Susan have a condo, and
Yes, Nate, Passover was special, wasn't it? All the weeks leading up to it, and then the time at Betty Ford afterwards, right, Susan? I still don't know how you guys pulled it off, but you did, again and again and again. For the final installment of this segment, I'd like to invite forward
Today, we were so very sad to hear that one of our dearest friends had passed away after a very long and debilitating illness. Mark and his wife Susie became our neighbors almost 30 years ago, and so began a most marvelous friendship. Mark was one of a kind. I think everyone here thinks that. He was a friend to everyone, but you always felt like you protocols. I won't say what they would ask you for, but we'll just say it was, hey, you want to meet up on Smut for some, and we'll leave it at that. Will never be forgotten. Mark, we are so very thankful that you are no longer suffering. And we're sure that you've already found the best martinis for Aura Felice.
In an article published in the Huffington Post in November of 2013 entitled, "A Great Chef, a Better Man," Marcus Samuelson wrote of Charlie Trotter, who had gone to his place in the next world, spoke of him as the consummate chef, as a role model. For advice or inspiration. He encompassed every part of being a successful chef, which included the structure of his restaurant, hospitality, and continually impressing his friends. If we adapt that and transpose that to our Mark, of course, he taught us about, as we've heard, the brisket, the lemon chicken, the beef burgundy, to add two final attachment, logic counteracts it. Passion is an attachment to an idea, or more often a particular feeling. It is the desire to keep experiencing that one feeling and to do what it takes to facilitate that feeling no matter what. Design and the presentation and the flair of food. The caterer is indeed mindful of that, but not only of the food, the Kiddush versus what the head count was that was given the week before. That was probably the most prominent of them, but it went on to other things as well. What Mark would teach me, and which was so true, is that sometimes people just want to have the fight with you. It wasn't about truth. Eat at his tables. We must forever consider ourselves grateful. And as you remember him and continue to pay your respect to him and think about him in these difficult days that you move into, I pray that he will become a part of you to the extent that you will practice on so many levels the most profound step of the bereavement journey, as it is undeniably real. And we will continue to testify to the reality of that through our participation in the burial. After I initiate the first spades of earth into the grave, I will invite to do it in a little bit of an irregular way when we are moving the earth from the mound to the grave, and then not to pass the shovel to the next person, but to return the shovel to the mound, let the next person take it from there. And we will eventually have people come to both sides. You are, and unto dust you shall return, God said to the first man and woman. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach. God has given, and God has reclaimed. Al Makomo Yavo B'Shalom, upon this resting place.